Both Danielle and Clementine were given a small box of animal crackers for supper. It was the most Bud could do for them before he left. There wasn't really much food left in the motor inn. After they ate, the girls went ahead and played some of the toys that were scattered around the motor inn. However, that soon turned into playing tag. They laughed and squealed as one ran from the other. "They're cute," Lee said with a chuckle. As he watched them, he and Vince were picking up the coloring books and crayons because of the approaching storm. "Oh, there they are," Vince said with a smile. He looked up and said, "I doubt they're going to like the storm." "You got a point there," Lee said. "Clem hates storms." "I doubt Danny's any better," Vince said. After they had picked up the remaining coloring books and crayons, they took the items to Lee's room. They kept in a neat pile near the door for when the storm passes by. "Hey," Carly said from the doorway. Both men stopped upright and looked up at her. "Listen, those guys aren't back yet. I'm going out there to see what the problem is. Wyatt and Ben are coming with me." "Okay, Lee, you've taken care of the baby longer than I have. I'll let you take care of the girls while I go do watch," Vince said. Lee nodded his head in response. He knew that he would have to cut his work out for him. Even with both toddlers being exhausted and very mature for their ages, he would still have to put them to bed. "All right, we'll be back as quick as we can," Carly said. She left the room and the two men went outside. They saw Ben and Wyatt at the gate. They were ready to head out. "Where are they going?" Clementine asked. The two men looked down at her and Danielle. The toddlers were looking at them with curious glances. "Don't worry, they'll be back. They're going out to the farm to check on the others," Lee said. "Is everyone okay?" Clementine asked. "We think. They're just going to go down and make sure," Vince said. "You two don't have to worry about it. They'll be back. For now. I think it's bedtime," Lee said. "Will you stay up any longer?" Clementine asked. "Nope, you had a long day, and that storm's almost upon us," Vince said. "Yeah, storm bad," Danielle said with a frown. "Yes, it is. Storm can be very bad, but we'll be all right," Vince said. "And, well, with everyone out here, I'll have to go on watch. That means Lee will have to take care of you for the rest of the evening, Danny." Danielle shook her head and said, "You take care of me." "I can't, honey. Somebody's got to take the watch. Don't worry. Lee has been taking care of Clementine for 3 months now. He knows what he's doing," Vince said. Danielle pouted in response, and Lee looked to Vince and said, "She likes you." "Yeah, I guess so," Vince said. Lee then leaned over and picked up the two toddlers. He had one on each hip. "Well, good luck," Vince said. "You too," Lee said. They turned and went to the opposite ways of each other. Vince went on watch while Lee would have the task of putting the two toddlers to bed at the same time. Lee went into the room and the thunder roared from outside. The girls tensed up and squealed in horror. Lee shushed them and said, "It's okay. It sounds scary, but it won't hurt you," Lee said as he set the girls down on the bed. "I'm going to really do some things really quick before we have a bedtime story," Lee said to the girls. The toddlers nodded, but they were obviously very scared. Lee walked over and lit a candle in his room. Then he grabbed a baby book and a couple of pacifiers. One as new, and the one would be for Danielle. Lee set the baby book on the bed and placed the pacifiers in the girls' mouths. Lee then changed them into their pajamas, to which there were two of Clementine's pajamas. He sat on the bed and picked up the girls so they were sitting on his lap. He grabbed the baby book and said, "Okay, let's read this one." He opened up the book and started to read the book. As he read, the thunder did crash a couple of times from outside, but aside from Danielle jumping a bit, neither girl cried so much. It definitely helped that Lee was holding them and the pacifiers were there to comfort them. Once Lee had finished reading to them, both girls were leaning on to him. They were at the verge of falling asleep. Then Lee set down the book, placed Clementine on the bed in order from the crib. It would require both arms, so Clementine was easier to deal with if she got upset. Lee placed Danielle on the crib before he went over and picked up Clementine. He then placed her in the crib. "Good night, Danielle. Good night, Clementine. You two fell asleep so well and didn't fight with one another." The girls were only half listening as he tucked them in. Of course, Lee figured that they would be best friends, considering the circumstances and how they got along well today. Soon enough, they were asleep. Lee went over and started to read out of his book until he heard the dumpsters from outside. He looked to see that the group had returned. Lee got up and went outside. The thunder and rain passed, and Lee walked over to the group. He was surprised to see them with somber looks. "Is everything all right? Where did you get this stuff?" Lee asked. "Why do you care?" Lily snapped as she shoved him and went to her room. "What's your deal?" Lee inquired. "Fuck off," Lily spat. "Don't give that bitch any attention. She's been in a pouty mood since her dad died," Kenny said. Lee then looked around and said, "Where's Larry and Mark?" "Dead," Kenny said. "We would have joined them if Bud hadn't stepped up, and Carly, Y, and the kid didn't show up." "What happened over there?" Lee asked. Bud sighed and said, "A lot." "I'm all ears," Lee said. Bud looked at Lee for a few seconds and said, "You were right about keeping the girls here. Those St. John's were cannibals." Lee's eyes widened and said, "Holy shit." "Yeah, Mark and I went out to check out the fence, but we ended up getting attacked by those bandits. They shot at us. One of them got Mark in the shoulder. We somehow got out of that, and they promised they would help him," Bud explained. "A promise they didn't keep. Those sick fucks fed him to us," Kenny spatted. "When Bud found out about that, they took us hostage and threw us in the cooler. Larry had a heart attack. There was nothing we could do for him," Bud said. "That was just one benefit of the trip," Justin said. "How could you say that?" Katja said, with horror in her voice. "Because it's the truth. His death was a long time coming. I don't feel any sympathy towards him. I'm glad he's gone. Whatever he do, beat up Lee, treated him and Vince like shit, and he snapped at everyone," Justin said. "We'll move on easily from his ass." "Do you have to respect for him now that he's gone?" Katja exclaimed. "Calm down, hun," Kenny said. "No, look, I understand that Larry was hard to deal with, but you have no right in criticizing him like that," Katja said. "I don't care. I'm just glad he's gone. We'll do so much better without him. Well, most of us anyway," Justin said. "Damn, dude, that's cold," Wyatt said. "Please, I'm just saying what we're all thinking," Justin said. Katja shook her head and stormed off from the group. Duck followed her. "She'll get over it. We're all a little emotional after losing some folks," Kenny said in an uncaring tone of voice. He didn't care about Larry dying either. "Where did you get all this stuff?" Lee asked. "Some Volkswagen that we went to when we were coming back," Kenny explained. "I still didn't want to take it, however, since whoever owned it could still be alive and have kids, but Bud, however, trailed off. Hey, we left half of it behind. More than we could have," Kenny said with a tang of anger in his voice, and had some other group members start to haul the supplies in the storage room. "It was the least we could do," Bud said. Lee then turned his head and saw Justin walk away from the group. Vince approached him and Justin said, "Thank you, Vince." "So your mind's made up?" Vince asked. Justin nodded and said, "Yeah." Vince huffed and said, "Good luck out there." Justin smiled and said, "Thanks. I'm going to be taking off tomorrow morning." He walked over to his room, and Lee knew that this was going to be the last night he would stay in it. Vince walked up to Lee and said, hard saying goodbye to him, "Didn't think it would end like this." "Yeah, you going to be all right?" Lee asked. "I'll have to be. I got a little girl to look after. Speaking of which, won't mind if I bunk in the same room as you for a while?" Vince said. "I don't mind. I think it's a good thing you're becoming a father figure to her," Lee said. "Yeah, call me soft-hearted. She's a good little baby," Vince said with a smirk. "I know the feeling," Lee said. "Let's help them get that stuff over to the storage so we can get some rest." "Alright, sounds good," Vince said. The two men walked over and helped Bud, Wyatt, Kenny, Carly, and Ben get the supplies in one of the rooms. It was designed as a storage room. "Alright, that's good," Bud said, as he closed his storage room door. "Well, who's gonna watch?" Vince said. "I could do it if you need me to." "Nah, Ken and I will do it. I don't think we're gonna get much sleep tonight," Bud said. "I can't say I blame you," Wyatt said. "That was one fucked up situation." "Yeah, but we've learned from it. From now on, we have to be wary of strangers," Bud said. "Otherwise, Mark's sacrifice was in vain." "Agreed," Lee said. "Damn straight," Kenny added. "Alright, time to get some shut-eye. We have a lot of work to do tomorrow," Bud said. The group dispersed, with Bud taking watch and the group members turning in for the night. Kenny got what rest he could before he took over Bud's watch. 1 week later, Lee and Kenny went through the desolated streets of Macon. They had to maneuver around the abandoned cars and debris from the building. They were in Macon again to get food, medicine, and other supplies from the pharmacy. Lee then walked out into the middle of the central street with the hunting rifle in hand. The street was empty. There were no walkers in sight. "Looks like today's our lucky day," Kenny said as he walked up to Lee. "Yeah, things might actually go smoothly for once," Lee said. "We deserved it after last time," Kenny said. They walked down towards the pharmacy. Lee looked around to make sure there weren't any walkers approaching them. "So Lee, what's your decision on leaving or staying? I doubt your buddy Justin is coming back after all." Lee shook his head, and he said, "As much as I hate to say it, we're all going to have to leave. Those bandits have been attacking us non-stop, and we're almost out of supplies." Lee said, "I hate to do what the motor inn lets me teach Clementine. I've been teaching her on how to count and how to say complete sentences." "Glad to hear you're on board. I know we haven't had much of a best history, but I'm glad you and Bud are willing to come," Kenny said, with a more satisfied tone. "Who's all willing to go?" Lee asked. "Everyone but Lily," Kenny muttered. "Figures that she'd be difficult. She lost her dad. Still, it's getting dangerous. I understand that she needs to mourn, but for crying out loud, she's putting us in danger. I'm surprised those bandits haven't even attacked us recently or gotten anyone killed," Lee said. "Exactly. We need to be up and go before they decide that they aren't toying with us," Kenny said. "Yeah, you got a point," Lee said. They reached the ladder to the semi-truck trailer. The truck blocked off the rest of the street, so both men would have to climb over and pass to get to a side through the back entrance. "All right, over the rig and into the pharmacy. We'll grab everything we can," Kenny said. "We didn't leave much in there," Lee said. "Well, we're out of options. Something's better than nothing," Kenny said. He turned and climbed the ladder. Lee took out again and looked around for any walkers. "Shit," Kenny muttered. Lee looked back over to Kenny and asked, "Are you all right?" "The ladder broke. I don't know how many trips she's got left in her," Kenny said, then looked to the ladder. It had broken off from the trailer. "Well, it looks like it's done," Lee said. He then walked up to it. He pulled on it, and it was enough for it to break off. The ladder fell to the ground, and Lee shook his head. "What now?" Kenny asked. I'll find another way up there," Lee said. He then looked around the destroyed town, and he noticed a nearby jeep with a winch attached to it. He took hold of the hook and started to pull it towards a semi-truck trailer. "I guess this will be our last trip here. I personally want to leave Macon tomorrow," Kenny said. "That sounds good," Lee said. "It'll give us enough time to gather up essential supplies." He attached a hook to the axle of the trailer. Then he walked back over to the jeep and turned on the winch. The device dragged as the jeep moved forward as Lee walked alongside it. "Duck was asking about that guy at the dairy last night," Kenny said. "I don't think it fazed him. It happened a while ago," Lee said. "That doesn't matter. I guess he's just still thinking about what happened," Kenny said. "It was a scary situation with Sean dying," Lee said. The winch dragged into the jeep in the semi-truck trailer. "I'm just worried that he'll always think it was his fault," Kenny said. "Well, it's not. That was a tough situation," Lee said as he got on top of the jeep. Kenny leaned forward and extended his hand out to Lee. "You sure you up for this?" Lee asked. "Come on, Lee, I'm fine. Just give me your hand," Kenny said. Lee shrugged and jumped to grab Kenny's hand. Kenny groaned as Lee leapt up onto the semi-truck trailer. "Shit!" Kenny muttered as he gripped his side. "You okay?" Lee asked. "What do you think? I'm shot. Haven't been okay for the last few..." Kenny said, but was interrupted when a loud scream pierced through the dead town.